All right, welcome everyone to the Nintendo Show podcast. Before we get started tonight, since it's our first episode, I want to give everyone a quick backstory on what brought us together for the show. All of us are longtime Nintendo fans, and while we love the big end, some of us have become rather disillusioned with their practices, especially in recent years. As discussions took place, we realized we weren't alone in our feelings toward Nintendo. As such, a group discussion came about, and that's what you're listening to now. We're going to take a real look at what Nintendo is doing right, what they're doing wrong, and we're hoping maybe it'll give you a chance to take a second look at your own opinions concerning Nintendo. All right, and to get the topic started tonight, we're going to talk about the new Nintendo 2DS XL. That is probably the latest news story.
I love it.
I hate it.
Can't wait.
We're all going to buy two, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessary. I was reading an article that was mentioning how the 2DS was their best-selling system last year, and I think that they looked at that and said people must love the 2DS instead of thinking that that was a new demographic buying the cheapest system out because they've been playing Pokemon Go, and now we're ready to get back into the console games of Pokemon.
I see this as potentially, I see them as phasing out the 3DS. There's definitely cost savings in those standard 2D screens that are being used for other things. Like the only place that I can think of that is still using the glasses-free 3D technology is the 3DS. That's got to be, a substantial cost and supply chain issue from that side. I mean, again, that's right. There's been a shortage of 3DSs lately, and I'm guessing that they're going to be kind of phasing those out because otherwise, that's a custom screen that's being built specifically for them. Most likely, I can't see that continuing to be practical from a production standpoint, which bothers me because again, I'm a huge fan of the 3D, but I really do kind of see this as phasing out the 3DS eventually, which is why I hate it mostly, I think.
Well, I'm seeing that too. A lot of the, I wouldn't say a lot, but I've noticed Nintendo is kind of sneaking in some of those 3DS games that don't even support the 3D. Like this new Pikmin game
kills me.
It's not supposed to do that. Pokemon games for the longest time on the 3DS haven't supported 3D. So yeah, I'm with you. I like the 3D.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I might not buy that Pikmin game since finding out that it's not 3D. Like that just irks me. Like it's a 2D side scroller, man. Like
but because it's full screen, they can't have the top half be in 3D and the bottom half not be.
Why not? Every other 3DS game has been that way.
Yeah, but this is a single image though. Remember, it's the top half and the bottom half go together like two pieces of a puzzle, so they're one complete image. So that's what would make it weird.
That sounds like a justification. If this were 2012, they'd have done it anyway. The top half would be 3D.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't think they've done this on the 3DS. I know they did it on a few games on the DS.
Yes, that were that way. Yeah.
I know Contra 4, I think, was one where there were certain levels where the top and bottom, or maybe all the levels. But I remember thinking it was awkward kind of then.
Yeah, back when dual screens was, actually giving you something to do on both screens was a thing, huh?
Yeah, it's weird. I like the 3DS. I think it works out a lot better than the Wii U did. For some reason, it's easier to have the two screens that close together.
Adjacent. Yeah, it's because you're at that scale. It's almost one screen, right?
Yeah.
It's in your hands. They're right there. Whereas at a TV, it's the focal distance is the big problem. One screen is a foot away from you, and the other is 15 feet away. That just became. I mean, for the few games that did require you to look back and forth, that did become kind of a pain. Right, Mario Kart, like I'd play Mario Kart for 2 hours before I remembered there was the horn button on the Wii U pad, right?
I knew it was there immediately because it's the only thing to do on it other than the map.
No, I know, but you know what I mean? It's just I'm not looking at it for 2 hours and then, oh yeah, I've got a horn.
Yeah.
Well, I used the gamepad for the map before they even added a mini map on the screen, and that
Yeah.
was the biggest annoyance I had.
Yeah, see, that was the same thing. That's right. I forgot. I tried all that out in the beginning, but very quickly it's like I can't look at this map. If I look at this map, I'm going to eat it on my next turn, right?
Yep.
Yeah. There was just no way to do it, especially if you were trying to use the Wii U pad as the wheel, right?
You say how many games, or maybe I should say how many laps did that last? Using the Wii U motion controls.
Oh, I always default to that when I'm playing with family, right? Because
Really?
I don't want to destroy everybody.
Oh, I do.
Oh no, see, I give myself the wheel as the handicap, and they can still hit me with 2 blue shells, and
I see. Since I skipped the Wii generation, I didn't get the love of the wheel that everyone else has. And when it came out on Wii U, I thought it looked goofy. And then now the Switch one, I think, looks just as goofy. I got a friend who keeps sharing photos on Facebook of his wheel because him and his wife now are playing Mario Kart 8 on the Switch. I think he skipped the Wii U generation, but is a big Zelda guy. I don't get the love for the wheel, but I guess it's here to stay.
I don't have particular love for the wheel. I mean, it's neat, right? I still like the motion control gimmick when it works well, and Mario Kart it works well. It's always, just like with everything else, it's always a little more precise to use the sticks, right? That's just how that's how ARMS is going to be, right? But
Does the 2DS have a gyroscope in it? I guess it would have.
That's what I was wondering.
It's gotta. I assume it's everything the 3DS is minus the screen.
I guess
There's too many games. There's too many games that have gyro functionality. They couldn't not have it.
Yeah, and there's Nintendo ones, even Star Fox 64, which I think is out of print in actual cartridge form. That has a weird motion control mode where you can actually fly the missions. You could do it in first person and in gyro mode, but I always think that's kind of weird. I like it for like Breath of the Wild with the Pro controller. It's nice that you can use it for like the subtle aiming with the bow and things like that. And
It works
Splatoon,
well.
I've always liked it. I've always loved it for Splatoon.
Agreed.
See, I like using the gyro. I like using the gyro like in conjunction with the joysticks. That's how I use it in Breath of the Wild.
Oh,
if it's
same.
Me too.
And Splatoon.
If it's just straight up,
slight adjustments.
It's just straight up gyro. I can't tolerate it.
It depends. For certain things, like if it's not, for example, if it's not a time critical thing, if I'm not about to get hit by an enemy and I need to shoot the arrow off fast, if it's something where I just got to kind of line something up, I'll do it all gyro. But like Splatoon teaches you very quickly how to kind of combine the sticks and the gyro, I think.
Yeah. It's like you're just a second faster than you'd be with just the sticks.
See, I could never get the hang of it in Splatoon. I tried it so many times, I just couldn't get the controls down pat.
It clicked well for me. I was surprised.
Me too.
And second nature.
It really does. The one thing that irks me still, and they have it in Splatoon 2, is the up and down. You're right. You can't do up and down with the motion controls, only side to side, or not. No,
yeah, not so great.
I'm sorry. The stick you can do side to side with the stick, but not up and down. That's the only. And you quickly work around it in Splatoon, and I don't notice it anymore, and I'm sure you guys don't. But that's the only kind of quirk I wish they would tweak a little bit.
That quirk is what gets me. And that's why I could never make it a seamless transition.
Yeah, that one quirk is what necessitates motion controls, right? If you could just do up and down with the stick, then the old twin stick console shooter players would have no problem.
I don't think I ever noticed that.
Really?
I'll have to check that out next time. Well, maybe it just wasn't. I wasn't paying attention to that part, maybe.
You kick your sensitivity up on the gamepad, and once you get used to it, it's a non-issue. But
Yeah. But the 2DS, do you think Splatoon's gonna ever have a 2DS or 3DS version?
no,
What about a little
Hard.
offshoot cheapy game like a Chibi Robo type, Ziplash
That's
type
that's
Splatoon
always a
adventure?
possibility.
I could see
Yeah.
like a small scale, some real they'd call it something else, I guess. Now that you mention it, they could pull off a basic 3D shooter.
Splatoon Federation Force.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I was thinking like sports in Squid Town.
I was thinking more along the lines of Splatoon Prime Hunters, but same general idea.
How about Splatoon Splat Ball? And then they can cross market it. Have you guys seen these splat balls, by the way? If you go to Toys or my Toys R Us anyway, in my area, has these it's basically just a slimy wet ball that's shaped like a squid, and it comes in like one of those weird foil packages that you can peel open so you don't know what color you've got or whatever.
Wait a sec, is it shaped like a ball or shaped like a squid?
I think it's shaped like a squid. But it's like a squid ball. It's like a squishy ball. And I'm just like, why? Who wants these in America? I didn't even buy one. And I didn't buy the large squid plush either. I'm getting restraint now.
These are like Nintendo branded, or are this just
Yeah.
something? Oh,
Yeah,
seriously?
about the time the Switch hit, my local Toys R Us, right next to the Nintendo Switch section, which by the way is now their first shelf. It was like on a separate aisle. Now it's their first one. So when you walk in there, the first thing you see is the Nintendo stuff. And next to the video game stuff, they've added a Nintendo toy section that has like some clothes and like a Mario skateboard. And they've got a giant squid plush, and these splat balls and everything that's in any way Nintendo branded is all right in that one little area, right when you first walk into their video game section.
And of course, we've seen all the stuff at Target that Mo sent pictures of. And yeah, my Toys R Us, we went in, to Babies R Us the other day, and we had to walk under this giant cardboard Mario Kart 8 Deluxe arch to get into the store. And I
Yeah.
wanted to go out to my car and get a cigarette lighter and light it on fire.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it doesn't seem like they marketed Mario Kart 8 very well the first time around. Other than, if you had the Wii U, you were like, I get a free game. This is the best thing I've ever had. And I will say this now will be the best reward Nintendo's ever had. But there really wasn't as much marketing. Oh, it was the best. I got Pikmin 3.
And also bizarre. Hi, here's going to be the game that we know we're going to sell more of probably than any other on this platform. And why don't we just throw in another free game with it? I mean,
Yeah.
great for us, great for the consumer, but like, why? Why would you
Very
do that?
non-Nintendo.
Well, no.
Maybe they thought that would get people to buy the system.
Very old Nintendo.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
They
right.
They probably thought it was
true.
a system seller, because then it's like you can just pay for one game and get two games.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. That's.
But did you ever see a commercial for that? Or did you ever see that anywhere other than on a Nintendo news site?
Yeah, or on the My Nintendo site specifically was, I think, the only place I ever saw it, and that's preaching to the choir. That's people.
Yeah, because that was like a Club Nintendo deal, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah, you had to be in Club Nintendo to do it, and the only people probably that even knew about it were the people that were in Club Nintendo already. So that's already your core audience. Those are the people who bought the Wii U, guys. That's not going to help you.
Yeah, that free game deal kind of frustrated me, because I forget what all the games were, but I remember thinking I have all these games already, and I think I ended up getting Wii Party U, which is a horrible game in my opinion.
I think it was Wind Waker, Pikmin 3, Game & Watch, or whatever, Game & Wario.
I had just finally hunted down the original Wind Waker on GameCube like 6 months prior to that, so I hadn't bought it. So so that was my only option. Everything else I already had. And
I remember
there was
almost
another
bought
free game.
Zelda.
But I got the platinum rewards, right? That was all stuff I already had. I ended up getting Game and Wario download and disc, and I ended up getting Wii Party U download, and I hate to admit I bought the disc. The wife loves that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I skipped it. I went
Yeah,
Pikmin 3 all the way.
You guys missed nothing. Oh wait, you ended up with it.
yeah, I did.
Well, the physical one had a microphone, didn't it?
Nah.
Did it?
Oh,
I thought that was like one of the
I
old
thought it did.
Mario parties
Maybe.
or something. Yeah, but Wii Party U didn't hold up at all for me. I think I even tried it once when I had a group of friends over, and we just pretty much said screw this game and never touched that one again.
Yeah, so let's talk about some Wii U failures then. Right, asymmetric gameplay. The Luigi's Mansion game in Nintendo Land. How awesome was that? Did anything ever follow it up? No.
No, I only played that one time.
Oh, really?
With somebody.
Really?
Yeah, I bought Nintendo. I was not a day one Wii U guy, so when I bought it, it was paired with the Mario U, which wasn't that great, but I ended up buying it when it was $20 or so. I got Nintendo Land, and one day one of my friends came over to like check out the Wii U, and I was like, all right, now we can kind of play some of these Nintendo Land games, and that was one that I played. And it definitely was interesting to have the asymmetrical play. And it does work in some situations. Like if you were to have a game master and then 4 Wiimotes or something like that, you can do neat things with it. But I don't think it was big enough to base a system off of, or to say this is what our system's going to be known for. It was just a cool trick that was underutilized.
Until Smash Brothers came out, I'm pretty sure Nintendo Land was like the go-to party game for when my friends came over.
Multiplayer, yeah.
Yeah, everybody loved that Luigi's Mansion and the Mario chase, despite how simple that game was.
Yeah, I don't even think I've ever played Pikmin 3 has a multiplayer, and I don't think I've ever played that with anyone either.
Pikmin 3's multiplayer is actually really good, but you got to play it with somebody that knows Pikmin, and a lot of my friends either aren't hardcore Nintendo people, or even if they are, Pikmin's not on their radar. So it's like playing with someone trying to learn this bingo battle, or even the co-op. They just don't know what they're doing, so it doesn't really catch on.
Yeah, I think one thing Nintendo really needs to start doing is allowing multiplayer online. Even if it's just random, there's 4 people that are like, I would totally play whatever Mario Party or something like that. Like, it boggled my mind when they did that 3DS Mario Party, and it was local only.
Yeah,
they've got a lot of cool features, and I know that they like to have people in the same room together playing is a big deal for them. But I think in this era, there's a lot more people like me just sitting in my room alone, being like, hey, I would play this more if I had people to play with.
Well, and it's not like it's practicality. I mean, I have real life, friends that I do get together with occasionally, but far more often we're both, stuck work on a weekday or whatever the case may be. And it's just, it's not worth hopping in the car and driving 20 minutes one direction or the other. But hey, I'd get on with you and play a game if we had something to play. Totally, I agree. And when we're paying for online service, that, hopefully will be an option.
We'll see what happens.
I'm still waiting
for online service, and you're not going to have any games to play other than Splatoon and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yeah,
I will say, if there's any system that to me looks like it came out of a submarine, it's definitely more the Switch than the 3DS. I really want a new Steel Diver, man.
Yeah, it'd be different on single screen though.
That's true.
But you could easily do it. I mean,
that's true, and you can still, the bottom of the screen could still be the touch screen. I love the Morse code stuff. Was awesome. It was very Nintendo, but it was still a neat kind of intentionally simplistic way to communicate. that also, pretty much burned Morse code into your head, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I'd be all for it. I really think that game has a much bigger potential audience. I don't know how big. I never saw any numbers for it on 3DS. I know there's a lot of 3DSs out there.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because that game, it seems like it must have done okay because first of all, you can still hop into a random game today, and within 5 minutes or so, you'll have a full team of 8. So people are still playing it, but somebody must have put enough money into it because they did 2 different revisions on it too
And they
after it
kept
came
putting
out.
And they kept
where they
putting
added
out
more paid DLC.
Yeah.
Right. So somebody was
people were
probably
buying
paying.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was.
Especially when a game gets an update late, like this Animal Crossing did. Like when a game is pretty much a year or more old, and then they're like, now we're going to add more features to it. It must be doing okay.
Yeah, people must still be. Yeah, it must have some staying power. I mean, God knows we played that to death for a good little while.
Yeah, I can't do it anymore.
It's very simple. I mean, and it's again, and it's in so many ways just the predecessor to Splatoon, right? It was the short 4-on-4 matches with basically I see the guts of the same matchmaking system, right? It's evolved into Splatoon, but it's still the same thing. It's probably using the exact same servers.
Has Nintendo had other 8-player online games?
Mario Kart.
But I mean, Steel Diver came out before that.
Well, no, remember
Mario Kart Wii.
DS.
Oh, I guess Mario Kart for Wii. Yeah,
and
I guess
DS.
you're right.
That was the one that I
that's
played
right.
the
I
most
forgot.
out of. That was when they first started they had basic online leaderboards and all that kind of stuff for Mario Kart DS. That was the first time I remember seeing that.
That was their first online game, I think, wasn't it?
It was DS,
yeah. You know what? I think you might be right. That was why that was a whole big deal. Was it Nintendo? It wasn't Nintendo Network. It was called something else.
Yeah.
Nintendo
Well, I know the
Wi-Fi.
GameCube had a modem, but I don't know that Nintendo had any games that supported it. I mean, I know there were third-party games like Fantasy. Was it Fantasy Star?
Fantasy Star Online.
I think,
but I don't know if Nintendo. Well, like, did Animal Crossing on GameCube have online functions?
No.
Okay.
It didn't.
No.
Because I said I don't know what all that.
Everything
I dated a girl that had a GameCube and had the modem for it, which she was the only person I ever knew, and it's because of that Fantasy Star game.
Why'd you let that one go, man?
Crazy. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. That's if it's a chick that owns a GameCube with a modem.
Yeah, you think you keep.
There's a fair chance
regardless.
that there's something wrong with her.
Yeah, she was interesting, but it was weird because I felt like I was more of a gamer than she was, but I was like, she must have this deep dark thing going on because she has a modem for her GameCube. So somewhere she's more hardcore than I am.
So what else about the Wii
U? I really like it, man. Like I said, I use the web browser all the time. I think it's cool. I like the dual screens. I like being able to take the screen with me, which I guess the Switch is kind of like a Wii U that happens one screen at a time.
Yeah.
Well, and minus a web browser and apps. I mean, so they just need some apps. Give me Netflix just so I feel like I've got something to do on my Switch.
Yeah, no, I mean the Wii U, it doesn't have as many apps. Like I fire up the PS3 when I want to get HBO or Showtime or one of the others, but for all the basic standard stuff, the Wii U is still my go-to streaming box, and the second screen is awesome. I mean that's something that they should have. To me, the Switch not having video apps is such a missed opportunity because they were so great on the Wii U. Being able to have the video running on your TV and have all like the actor information and whatever on the screen that you can browse through while you're watching it. That was just, just such a standard, like, of course, feature for the Wii U. And not all of them did it. I think like the Amazon Prime one, as I remember, was pretty crappy.
Yeah, Amazon, the second screen has info. Although I still like Netflix, how it just puts both on both screens at the same time. I don't mind it.
Oh,
It
maybe
makes it easy to leave the room.
Yeah, and for me, like my Wii U has been perpetually attached to my computer monitor, and so most of the time I'm not right. I got something else up on my screen, so the second screen is what I'm working off of. 90% of the time, unless like we're playing Splatoon or something that really requires it. Otherwise, it's just another screen on my desk, and sometimes I'll just run a Netflix video down underneath my computer monitor. I mean, it's still like I still get a lot of use out of it, but that's your home computer basically. I understand.
Yeah. I use it for a lot because I don't have a PC, so I just use that as basically my media machine, and that's kind of justified it because I'm sure I've spent more time in the web browser than any game.
Yeah, unless you have
point.
subscriptions to some of the more exotic streaming services, it's got all the basics, and yeah, it's a great box for it. It's
other than Amazon and Netflix, I don't know what else you really need. It'd be nice, I guess, if it had Spotify, but I probably wouldn't use it that much.
I do have the HBO subscription, and that's on the PS3, so that's convenient. And
now, did you guys ever use that Nintendo TV feature when it was live?
I did for a few football games that I wouldn't have even been watching if not for the Nintendo TV thing. And I was just like, let's see. I think it was lagged.
I saw a few nonsensical, stupid posts from a friend of mine about various football games and whatever. And yeah, so I know there were people that used it. I would occasionally check the little Miiverse.
It's basically gambling without money. You guess how the next play is going to do. It's like, will they make this field goal? Yes or no? And then it shows you the poll. And then if you were the one that won, you get a certain amount of points. And then at the end of it, it just says who had the most points for that game.
It's like the little trivia. It's like the little trivia things at the bars.
Yeah, except for if you're watching a live football game and it's like, will they make first down on this play? Yes or no?
That's neat.
And then you have to vote. Yeah, so I mean, it was okay. It wasn't, it wasn't reinventing the wheel or anything. But
kind of like the Everybody Votes channel on the old Wii, which was occasionally a fun little waste of time when you had friends over.
There was a period of time where I checked out Everybody's Votes channel for like once a week for probably a year or two. I was that dedicated.
Yeah,
that's hardcore.
I did it for a long time, religiously. Yeah,
That
and the Nintendo channel.
Yes.
They
By
had.
the time I got a Wii, those were almost gone. Like they were just starting to discontinue like web services for the Wii. I got it like less than a year before I got a Wii U.
And I was one of those people that after like the first few rounds of games, there was so much shovelware and BS and it really started to show the age of its components very quickly, right? In the HD world still being a SD box. And that was even me having I was a very, very late adopter on HD television technology. So like I had no use for an HD output on my Wii, but even then just the quality of what the thing could do, because it was a GameCube with motion controls. We all knew that. It was just right after Super Mario Galaxy and a couple other gems, I was just kind of like, and then it gathered dust until Skyward Sword.
I was pretty blind. I was pretty blind on like the quality of the Wii because, like UZ, I was extremely late to HD technology. I didn't get an HD TV until actually after I got my Wii U. So once I got that HD TV and hooked up the Wii U, I was like, wow. I even thought that was a big jump from the Wii to Wii U, and then I realized the Wii U was even behind everybody else.
Yeah, I think Nintendo's always been real good at hiding their technical things through art styles.
But
like
there weren't
Breath of the Wild.
Well, if you can even go back to Donkey Kong Country on the Super NES, right? When the 32-bit consoles were already out, and the Super NES was really showing its age, they were able to do some really pretty stuff with pre-rendered backgrounds and whatever on Donkey Kong Country. They were still able to eke some power out of it. But you're right, Nintendo. And now that I think about it, when the NES came out, it was primo. I mean, at least as far as the technology at the time, it was way better than any other console of the time.
Yeah, even if you look at some of those things like Battletoads and
Yeah.
Kirby to a degree, like some of the graphics towards the end of every Nintendo system's life, they start pulling out,
Yeah.
the really, they can see, they know what it can do at that point.
Yeah, it's old hat at that point, and they can really get the most out of it. But that, but they do have this history, because I remember the Genesis came out, and how long does anyone remember the gap between the Genesis and the Super Nintendo? Because NES was sitting on its haunches, and it was old for a while before they finally came. Like when the Super Nintendo came out, it was a very long time in coming.
Yeah, it
And
might have been 3 or more years.
And it was great hardware for its time. But then similarly, the 32-bit systems were out, and the Super Nintendo was still chugging along with it way past kind of the point where they should have killed it. Then the N64 came out, and they kind of, just because they'd been so late with it, they'd already lost the race at that point. And then they've been behind ever since. So the good hardware, the last really solid hardware generation was the GameCube, because they said, hey, we're playing a losing game here. But it was because they sat on their haunches the first couple generations, I think, and they've always been playing catch up since.
Yeah, I think Sega was always an innovator. They were the first with the 8-bit, the first with the 16. Maybe not 32, but they always innovated kind of generations. They were the first, and then they kind of had to pay for that.
Were they first with 32? Remember the 32X? Did that come out?
I don't think they were. No, I think the 32. I think the Jaguar and the 3DO and stuff like that beat it to the 32-bit game. But then I don't remember if Saturn was 32 or if that was 64, and then shortly after that the Dreamcast.
32. Jag was 64, but you wouldn't tell by playing the games.
Yeah, I guess that's right. It was a real arms race back then. At some point they just stopped giving us the specs, as an advertising nugget. Or it might have been Nintendo 64 might have been the last time you heard 64 bits. Like, did PlayStation say we've got this many bits of processing power?
Yeah, that was really, because I think the general public began to realize that wasn't as significant as they thought it was, right? Because again, the ColecoVision was an 8-bit system, and the difference between that and the NES is very stark. And the Jaguar was 64-bit system, and there was nothing on it that even really came close to what was on the 32-bit PlayStation at the time. Outside of a couple, real basic ports. The Alien versus Predator on the Jaguar was pretty good.
I think I remember ads for that. Nintendo's always been kind of on top of the portable market as well. Getting back to the 2DS, like, from Game Boy and everything up. And I don't know. I hope this 2DS isn't the very end of the 3DS. I think at this point they're playing it more careful how they are kind of with their stock, or with game stock in stores, of the scarcity and things like that. Is that I'm hoping it doesn't get to a point where they're just like, we're going to make whatever we make and see if those sell out, and if they do, we'll make more. But I kind of think with a 3DS being really short at the holiday season this year, I think they are kind of dialing back how much of those they're putting out, and maybe they do see the 2DS XL as an eventual final form of the 3DS.
That's what I assume.
But they did, just recently, they did announce that they plan to continue to support the 3DS at least through next year.
Well, that doesn't say too much.
It could be 5 systems a month for each store,
Well, and that doesn't even necessarily mean new stock saying that they'll support it. You know what I mean?
I think they were what I took away from that was that they were still going to be releasing new software for the 3DS through 2018, exactly. I guess.
Yeah,
There's
which
stuff in
is
the works.
but again, all that is also 2DS software as well. So when they say the 3DS line, that may not necessarily mean the 3DS line.
Yeah, I would imagine
Yeah.
most of the indie devs have probably made the switch over to the Switch, and are probably done developing for the 3DS. So it'll probably be people rolling out what they made, up to a certain point, or it already started and gotten so deep in that it'll
Yeah.
probably dial down quite a bit. I would imagine. We'll see.
Yeah,
I guess E3 will be an indicator.
Yeah, I gotta assume there's not new development going on for the 3DS at this point, or anybody starting anything new.
It's starting to show its age a little bit, I think, especially with that Pikmin game.
Mhm.
It's starting to look a little pixelated, like square edged.
Well, to be fair, it did when it came out. At least the
Yeah.
XL. The tiny little original 3DS screens to me were sharp enough and looked pretty good. But and it was the same thing with the DS XL. That I was never sold on the old DS XL. My buddy had one, and I just thought those looked terrible.
Well, yeah, you take a bad looking picture and make it larger, and it's going to
Yeah.
look worse.
Yeah, I
I
was
mean, at
never sold
least.
on the XLs until
Yeah.
I got the Majora's Mask new 3DS XL, and the only reason I got that as an XL was because it was special edition.
Yeah. I've just got the standard black, but it is XL, I guess. I went in for the XL thing.
Anyone replace their little rubber stick with the PSP pad?
No.
My
Besides
original
me?
3DS one pops off like crazy.
That's unfortunate. I've seen replacement. I mean, if you stuff on eBay or on Amazon, so it's doable.
My original 3DS's hinge broke, and the weirdest way, on the right hand side by the light, it just started cracking and then one day fell off. And now I can separate the two screens, but it still works.
Nice.
But I replaced it with another 2DS X or 3DS XL, and never made the switch to the new. So I hope this one doesn't die, so I don't have to make the switch to the new.
My original 3DS, the Zelda version that came with the Ocarina of Time remake, the shoulder buttons just gradually got worse and worse to the point that they just don't work anymore. I don't know if it's dust. I don't know what. I haven't taken the thing apart to find out, but that was pretty maddening. That being said, I was buying all the Nintendo hardware back then, right? I was the fanboy, so it was no big deal. I just upgraded. But yeah, I'm not going to be dropping that kind of money on Nintendo anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, I stopped doing that once they started coming out with a new handheld iteration every year.
Yeah, I mean, I would occasionally pick one up. I didn't have to pick up every one. I skipped most of the DS line. I got the original DS Fat on launch day, and that's the only DS I ever owned. And to me is still the definitive version because it's got both cartridge slots, and it's the only way to take a Pokemon from Ruby or Sapphire to one of the DS generations, so you can, move it all up through the chain.
You could do that with the light too, couldn't you? Had both slots.
You're right. You're right. The light had both slots. It wasn't until the I line that they dropped the slots, right? Yeah, or
Yeah.
the GBA slot.
Yeah, that GBA, that was the best trick ever because they sold me the original one because it was awesome, and then they released one with a light, and it's like, what, are you gonna not get the one with the light? So I bought an SP, and then they made the light brighter.
Well, he's talking about the DS Lite, the smaller
Yeah, that had the
version.
Game Boy Advance, right?
And then
I was
the
just
Game Boy
saying.
Advance with the light. The fact that the Game Boy Advance originally released without a backlight was another one of those weird Nintendo decisions
those
back in
Nintendo
the
bait
day.
and switch.
Yeah, the fact that, right, because the Game Boy, that was obviously the biggest, major problem with the Game Boy for its entire lifespan was the lack of any sort of backlight. And I remember I owned some big, giant, goofy light attachment, right, that you
Yeah.
would
Didn't
strap to
everybody?
your Game Boy. Yeah, everybody did. So when the
Now you can tell your
GBA
kids
first came out,
when I was growing up, I used to play screens that weren't backlit.
exactly. I'll bust it out and show them, man. I keep mine all wrapped up nice and sealed away in a plastic tub. Like I'm gonna bust that out on my kids at some point.
Yeah.
But right, it's like when the original GBA released with no backlight, it was kind of like when the Wii released with no HD, which again, as we've said to a couple of us, is not that big a deal. But it was a big deal when that came out, and it's like, you're kidding me. Like, it's a beautiful piece of hardware. It's basically a pocket Super Nintendo, and it's got a nice color screen with no backlight.
Yeah.
It was just, you know what I mean? It was just such a stupid, obvious omission.
It was disappointing. Yeah.
I understand A, battery life, and B, cost, but it was just like, come on, guys. That's an obvious feature you could not leave out.
Well, the original GBA ran on AA batteries. The SP was the first one that actually had
rechargeable.
Because of lithium ion.
And the SP
My
was the first GBA I owned. I skipped all the early ones. Go ahead, Mo.
Smart. I was gonna say my SP battery is actually dead, so my Game Boy Advance only works if it's plugged in, which I should probably
Amazon,
go on eBay and pay China to get me a new battery.
dude, $5 or less, I guarantee you. Or you know what? Double check.
And it comes with a screwdriver.
Double check the Nintendo store. They still have old stuff like that sometimes.
It'll be overpriced. I keep thinking I should buy a
true.
Wii U battery now, and maybe a 3DS battery now, just because I know at some point it's going to happen.
I do that for all my systems when I sunset them. Like if the battery's kind of weak, or even if it's usually not, I'll just give them a nice fresh battery, put it at storage voltage, and then pack them away.
I wanted to stay current. Did you hear that apparently the Nintendo Pro controller has a 3DS battery in it? Somebody had taken one apart and said it was the 3DS's battery that they're using in the Pro controller, which if you look on the back, if you have one,
that's smart.
It's got the big old weird rectangle battery that you can see through the casing.
The Switch Pro controller?
Yeah. Yeah, the rechargeable battery in it apparently is the 3DS if these internet people who take stuff apart are to be believed.
Yeah, and talking about the controllers, you were talking about the Joy-Cons feeling cheap earlier, Mo. Anyone see that report? They're apparently the most that they're losing money on the Joy-Cons, it sounds like, or they're about breaking even. Whereas they're making $50 a head on the tablet itself.
Yeah, maybe they could do a Joy-Con Lite that doesn't have the sensor on the bottom. But I mean, they're going to have they got to have the gyroscope. They pretty much have to have the NFC in there to promote their own Amiibo stuff.
Well,
so there's not a lot of fat to cut.
I think they're just hoping for scale, right? If it takes off and they're selling 1 million of these things, then production costs go down. And they're still.
What about a Joy-Con Pro? They could do a Joy-Con Pro that's kind of a little bit more rounded and ergonomic, and actually has the D-pad on it,
and charge more for it. Yeah,
maybe it doesn't have motion control or something like that, but it's
going to have all the basic features, I would think.
Yeah, I think so.
Otherwise, it's not a Joy-Con. I don't think they'll release one. I don't think they'll release one that's missing a feature, unless there's a feature that dies off.
Have you seen the mock-ups of like the Super NES and the GameCube? I'm wondering if that'll be a thing where people have done mock-ups of different Joy-Cons because these are so easily removable. You could make them anything.
And somebody from Nintendo announced that this opens up all sorts of accessory possibilities.
Right. Do you think we'll have like a fishing game where there's a reel on the right Joy-Con or something?
You know what? So there you go. If you could produce a basic, simple $20 Joy-Con that clips on, that packs in with a game like that, like a fishing reel or something.
Yeah,
that would be something I could see him doing. That would be cute.
It'd be very Nintendo.
It'd be very Nintendo, and it would be something I would potentially even buy. If they had a cool looking little fishing reel controller, I'd pick up that fishing game. I'd have to try it out.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if they did like eShop versions, like if they got Genesis and then they actually had Genesis Joy-Cons that had the 3 buttons, or if they did something.
I've seen some
That'd
speculation
be
online
neat.
like that. Yeah.
It's a lot of possibility, and they're not saying a whole lot at this point, it seems like. But yeah, the Joy-Cons to me definitely make the system itself feel just a little bit cheaper. Like usually Nintendo stuff feels super super solid.
Well,
I also wonder if third parties will be able to make
yeah.
Joy-Cons, because of the way that it latches. They might have copywritten the way that they connect, and maybe they won't be able to make third
It'll
party
be
versions.
like everything else. It'll be licensing, I would think. Companies like Hori or whatever might very potentially be able to make their own third-party Joy-Con type accessories.
Yeah.
I won't buy them, but they'll make them.
The Mad Catz one with the turbo button is going to be out there in a year.
I can't
Yeah.
wait.
Oh, and there's already, like, who's making the fight sticks? Somebody's got a fight stick out
Oh
already.
yeah, is that Hori? Or I can't remember who the big maker in the fight stick game, but yeah, they were trying to pitch it as a Street Fighter like fighting game thing, because I actually work with a guy who's one of these fighter game people, that he's the only one that I know in my entire life that wants to have the big arcade stick, and he'll play Street Fighter every iteration, and every fighting game that comes out he's way into, and he's hyped on the Switch, and he thinks Street Fighter looks good even at the price that it's at, which I think is insane. And there's that Pocket Fighter game. It'll be interesting to see. I think they're just trying to put their foot in the water to test every type of game right now, but I can't imagine anyone's going to justify buying that big arcade stick for Street Fighter.
I think it's the esport push, right?
Yeah. Well, and we'll see. Does anybody else expect Smash to be at least announced at E3? And that would maybe tie into the fighter stick a little bit better.
I have to assume so, because it's been conspicuously absent, and I don't even see on the various media feeds. I don't see anybody even asking about it. Like nobody. It's just it's like mum's the word, and they've all agreed that mum's the word. Like on those Reggie interviews, nobody seems to hassle Reggie. So what's going on with Smash? Why have we not heard a peep about it? Nobody says that, and that seems to me like
their pre-interview might be, "I'll do your show, but you can't ask me."
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I get the sense that there is some kind of gag like that going on behind the scenes.
Well, plus we haven't heard anything about what Sakurai's been doing since the Smash DLC, right?
Probably sleeping.
Last time they were like, all right, Brawl's out. Now he's working on Kid Icarus. All right, Kid Icarus is done. Now he's working on Smash 4.
Yeah, no, and then it's been silence. Yeah, no, and it could be like Mo said, it could be a well-deserved break, but I have a feeling that there's a lot going on in terms of getting the port right, adding stages, adding
what they could do,
etc.
They could do the deluxe Smash Brothers, where they take all the 3DS stages and all the Wii U stages and the 2 different games and mash every feature, except for, of course, they can't do the Street Pass battle.
Oh well, who cares? That was fun.
That's been rumored since before the Switch was even announced. Just when it, was the NX or whatever, everybody's expecting the Championship Edition to come out. It's a mash of the 2.
They will charge full price for,
or more,
with all the DLC.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
All the DLC we already paid for.
Boy, what if they threw in a special edition amiibo you could only get with the physical version,
and 3 different recolors of it?
Oh, they could do the hand.
You'd have Master Hand amiibo, and then Player 2 would be Crazy Hand or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, that would not put it past Nintendo to sell 2, like a left and a right hand amiibo. That would be.
Yeah.
They'll do it.
Maybe you have to mail away for one of them. Yeah, or
one of them will be my Nintendo reward.
Oh, that would be the first reward worth getting.
Least.
Sounds like we've
deluxe
lost Mo.
Oh, sorry.
You were totally unintelligible there,
I
unfortunately.
said they could do a 3DS version that has the left hand and a Switch version that has the right one. Make you rebuy the same game twice again.
Mm-hmm. That's the evil turn I don't like. That's why, like, right? I was a blind faith purchaser. And most of the times I was rewarded, except for Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. Oh, geez.
Oh, jeez.
That was terrible. But
You can
right,
pick up another copy pretty cheap these days.
I think I saw the bundle with the 2 amiibo on
Yeah, 20.
Amazon. I think they had it on sale for like $9 a couple weeks ago.
No.
I think that is nice about the amiibos is that, like with Chibi, Robo, Ziplash, and especially with Animal Crossing, they see that there is a limit to what they can sell. Like people aren't just going to buy any amiibo you shuffle out there with no reason. Like with Animal Crossing, they went over the top, and they didn't really, until this latest update, didn't really have a good use for them, and they still arguably don't. But I think with all those in clearance right now, all those Animal Crossing amiibos, I think it may have at least done a little bit of good for them to see that you can't just release an amiibo of anything. And I'm curious how well all these different links are going to sell, because there's got to be like, what, 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 links now?
Well,
Yeah, because the new Twilight Princess and Majora's Mask and all these new ones they just announced too.
Yeah. They did an 8-bit. They did the Toon Link.
Well, and I think a lot of it's going to come down, right? Breath of the Wild is the cultural phenomenon, so I think a lot of it's going to come down to what they unlock for people. And I think by the time the first DLC rolls around, I think people aren't going to care all that much. But I hope
they restock those.
Oh, they will eventually. I mean, you heard about they were shipping Switches via plane at an extra cost of probably $40 a pop.
Yeah, I saw that. It didn't do much good, but I guess they sold some more.
Yeah, and who knows how many they shipped via air freight, but they obviously now they had their stock issues before, and I still believe that they were intentional marketing decisions to do that. I think these are all right, and it's the fact that they're not upfront about what's going on that pisses everybody off. But I think the 3DSs are probably the logistical reasons or whatever, and the NES Classic was always meant to be a marketing tool and never meant to be an actual product.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so, but with the Switch, obviously they're making a point to put out the stock because this is what they need people to buy to keep them in business. Because they apparently don't want to turn into a company that just resells miniature versions of its old consoles for some reason.
Like Sega.
Sega doesn't even sell their own. They
or Atari, right? But yeah, I think that was a cruel joke to play on everybody, and to say like we couldn't anticipate the demand for. We didn't think anyone would want this.
Yes, there's
and they've got the receipts to the eShop to every time we've bought these games multiple times on 2 systems.
Of
3 systems soon.
Of the how many billion people on the planet. Yeah, and of how many billion people on the planet, how many of them live in the modern world, and of those people in the modern world, how many of them grew up with an NES or a friend's NES or whatever? How many of them have fond memories of that thing? I would say half of the modern world has fond memories of that thing.
And those people are now old enough to have a spare $60 laying around to shill out for one that they can at least show off to their kids before they chuck it in the closet for the rest of its existence.
Like, there's no reason for Nintendo to have expected to sell less than literally a billion of those worldwide. If they were available worldwide, they could sell a billion. There's no doubt in my mind. It is that, like, Mario is right. Mario is arguably the most recognized character in the world. I've heard more so than Mickey Mouse. I always hear different reports on that, but he's one of them.
That's probably one of those Nintendo funded polls, like how the food industry does.
Yeah,
They're
fair
like,
enough.
we're paying the scientists to give us the result we're looking for.
Fair enough, but there's no doubt that Mario is one of the most recognizable characters in the world. If Nintendo were to put out a reasonably priced box like they did, there's no reason that, right, in China, in hell, in India, in South America, anywhere in the world, there would be millions of people lining up to buy that anywhere, in any country, any modern country where they could plug it into electricity and a television, they would be buying it. And
there's a million people lining up to steal it online, so I'm sure they could get some people to pay that stuff. But yeah, I think that it goes to, and they're teasing now, or people are rumoring about a Super NES Classic. If they really wanted to make things right, I guess kind of, they would maybe combine the Super NES and the NES Classic catalogs into one system.
No,
just have a Nintendo Classic.
It's a collector's piece.
It's the shape and the games and stuff, but they could do that. They could easily do like a double best of system as kind of a.
If they released an amiibo of the NES, they'd sell millions of them.
Oh yeah, gangbusters.
Right? There's just they know what they've got. There's all this BS about underestimating demand is an absolute lie.
Maybe the NES Classic could be a new character for Smash.
Yeah, they've embraced Rob. I would like the Virtual Boy's got legs, man. I would like to see the Virtual Boy as a fighting character.
How would you like the Virtual Boy as a reissue with all the games preloaded?
A miniature version.
Well,
yeah,
it would literally have the entire game catalog in it.
You could 15.
Yeah,
games.
And you could do a head strap, like a headband on it, and then it would have to have the full size controller hanging down from it.
Totally.
Well, Nintendo's been like dancing around the whole VR thing whenever it's been brought up in interviews.
Yeah, and they probably should. I mean, does anyone like having the idea of having a cell phone strapped to your head for VR? Because that's what the Switch would be.
Well, here's the thing: a cell phone strapped to my head is far more doable than this big, chunky, heavy tablet.
Because of the weight.
The weight, the weight and the size. It's a heavy thing. Like, right, my cell phone weighs a fraction of what this thing weighs. And even the cell phone strapped to your face is going to get tiresome after a little while. This thing, I just don't think it's doable unless they build some obnoxious, crazy thing with a counterweight on the back of the head.
The other thing is we don't know yet really what the Switch is and isn't capable of, as far as can it transmit data to other devices, or the degree to which it can do that. What can it read or scan or do that might be able. So I don't know if it has to be in the system. I still think it would be genius if that right Joy-Con on the bottom was actually an IR receiver or something like that you could actually send information to, so that they could use it for accessories, and you just set your right Joy-Con on top of the TV and use it for some purpose.
Yeah, no, I think I'm sure it's two-way. Right?
I guess we'll see. I was sure with the Wii U that they were never going to use that NFC reader.
Well, here's the only reason I say that is because, that's true. For like 2 years, that thing sat idle with no apparent use. But as far as the IR goes, just going from like my Arduino projects and stuff, usually at least all the sensors I see are the IR. Well, not always, but a lot of times they're little combo IR transmitter receivers.
Yeah. Well, how interesting was it for Smash that you could use your 3DS on Wii U?
That
actually used
that.
3DS. Yeah, I mean it wasn't the greatest in the world, but it was like something neat that you didn't know it could do.
And I had, well, in my case, I had, I would bring it to my family Thanksgiving, and there would be 8 kids wanting to play, and the 3DS was still a better option than a sideways Wiimote.
Wiimote.
Yep.
Yeah.
So for me, it worked out great. I had, because I basically had, so that nobody had to use a sideways Wiimote. I had just enough, controllers to cover everybody with 8 people.
Well, it worked for
And
me
it
until I
went.
got one of those GameCube adapters.
Oh, and
yeah.
on that subject, I'd like to point out, jumping back to the Virtual Boy, does anyone remember the Virtual Boy controller?
I do.
Yep. I
Yeah.
have one.
Okay, so you guys know that is a hell of a controller. That was really, to me, that's the highlight of that system. Well, that and the fact that it's the
Yeah.
Virtual Boy, but right, that was
That's a great controller.
that controller to me was like the one thing that Nintendo did exceptionally right on the Virtual Boy, with everything else pretty much being wrong, except for the 3D Wario Land game, which was spectacular.
Oh yeah, that's the only game that's worth anything on that.
Oh, I like the boxing one and a couple of the others. But no, the only one that I spent any real time playing through on the Virtual Boy was that one. I put in, some good hours on that guy, and my eyes punished me. But the controller, and you can see the controller is totally what evolved into the GameCube controller. It's the same basic shape. With the triggers related. It was basically a more simplified version of the GameCube controller with a giant obnoxious battery pack on the back.
Yeah. As long as it's fine, as long as you had the AC adapter for it.
Yeah.
I think it
Few
took
batteries.
six double A's or something.
I think it was 8. I'm pretty sure it was
8.
And
I've got a Super Scope 6.
And it burned them fast.
Yeah, it did.
What does yours take?
The Super Scope 6 takes, I think it's 6 C batteries.
That's a lot.
And it goes through them in, I would say, less than an hour.
Oh, you got me.
So believe me when I say I've got a Super Scope 6 new in box.
Barely used.
It's probably been played about 10 times. And the box is in decent condition because that's where I stored it most of the time. But yeah, I've still got that
How much
with
you willing
me.
to sell that for?
Oh man, I don't know, like $2. It's horrible.
Sold.
Yeah, because I've always wanted to have a Super Scope.
Hey, don't anybody steal this idea. We're going to do a Kickstarter campaign for lithium-ion rechargeable for the Super Scope 6.
Oh, genius! I will be a backer. I will be your first backer, sir. On that note, yeah, there's this little weekly, it's like bi-weekly flea market around here. It's this collectibles show that goes on Wednesday evenings and then Saturdays, and it's inside this giant warehouse that's miserable during the summer, but it's all just people selling collectibles, old superhero figures, old GI Joes, any kind of random toys, lots of anime and Japanese stuff represented. But there's also a handful of these shops that have just stacks and stacks of old GameCubes or Dreamcasts or whatever, and tons of old games and whatever. And they had, for weeks, I walked by a Power Glove for $50. Kept looking at it and kept looking at it and kept looking at it, and then it was gone. Anyone have one?
I do not.
I never did. My dad used to read like Consumer Reports and stuff like that, and I remember wanting the Power Glove for a Christmas or a birthday or something, and he was just like, "That thing's got really bad reviews," and that was the one time he really steered me right.
No, I mean it's terrible, but as you know, in hindsight, as a collector's item, none of us would have thought, right, at the time, that we all kind of wish we had one.
Well, that's what makes things collector's items, is because the people who are age appropriate to be using it aren't thinking of, boy, I better save this so I can make some money when I'm a grown up. That's why it's hard to find one in a perfect condition, and that's what makes that stuff rare and collectible. Is nobody had them or didn't have them in good condition, and the fact that you can buy them now is really enticing. I've always kind of wanted a Rob or something.
Yeah, well, that's the reason why I got a Rob, is purely for collectible purposes.
Does your Rob work?
Yes, it does.
I have my original Rob from all those years ago, and I've seen this problem on Robs I've seen elsewhere for sale. The motors wear out or something, and the arms like just fall to the bottom, like the whole arm assembly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at some
Mine,
point, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say mine shows a little bit of wear because obviously, mine's not an original one that I got myself because I wasn't even born during the NES era. So,
Ooh.
but
Make me feel old.
it definitely is. It's a little sluggish, but it still works. I actually only ever played it once because whatever that game is that comes with it is just absolutely terrible.
Gyromite.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the thing was sluggish even when it was new. I
Gyromite
think
was
it's
pretty cool. I need to jump in and defend Gyromite. Stack Up, I never really got much mileage out of, but my buddy and I had a hell of a time with Gyromite. That was getting the thing to spin up the little gyro and then going and setting it on the little pad and then having to go grab the other one while it's still spinning before it falls. And like, we actually had a pretty good time with that. That was a lot of fun.
but it's kind of like a robot vacuum, in that you could do the whole thing yourself a lot faster.
Understood. After a while, one of us just grabbed the controller out of Rob's hands and just pushed the buttons for it. But that was what it was. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I could definitely see how that could be fun, like when that first came out. But as like someone my age playing that, got
We've seen the
Rob
technology work better now.
Yeah. It was just I was just very impatient, and it's probably just more of a testament to my age. And
I mean, Teddy Ruxpin blew that thing out of the water, if you remember Teddy Ruxpin.
Sure,
and that was just a teddy bear with a cassette player in it.
But
that was more of a robot.
It was a mechanical puzzle, in itself. It was kind of its own little. You got to figure out how to move the arms without knocking over the spinning gyro. You got to lift them up. You know what I mean? There was a whole. At the time, I remember taking like a summer class on, just some summer science program or something, and they talked about, programming a robot and giving it basic, simple commands. And this was the era of, the
Radio
IBM
Shack
and basic computing, and being able to, go run to a Radio Shack and buy a bunch of parts and do something with it. I did all that kind of stuff as a kid. So to me, the whole Rob thing was just kind of a neat little robotic puzzle that was worked into the game. Like, I totally got what they were going for with it. To me, I mean, and I guess that's like me, I always liked the gimmicks, even from that point. Like, that was I liked Rob. I thought it was a cool gimmick. He came with little sunglasses in case your TV was too bright. Right?
How did they never send a cease and desist to the people that made Short Circuit? Like, if that's not Rob, I don't know what it is.
That totally.
Johnny Number 5 is Rob.
It absolutely is Rob. And how many years after Rob did that movie come out? Like, it was.
I mean, it's probably within 5.
It was absolutely. You're absolutely right, man. I don't know if residuals for that or what.
I'm surprised, especially, they just did another takedown for this Zelda Breath of the NES, which I think everyone who ever heard of that game saw a takedown coming. They were basically making a NES version of Breath of the Wild.
And it's the same, they're cloning that demo that they showed.
Yeah.
But I mean, they cease and desist everybody for everything. That Metroid 2 remake, which I think would have been awesome for the eShop.
That Pokemon game.
Yeah, which that would have been great too.
I don't understand why people do this. Like,
because they love Nintendo.
I understand that.
That's the only reason to do it.
Nintendo, it's a known quantity, and it's like, why? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I get it just from a fan standpoint, but it seems like, does everyone have a secret voice in their head telling them, no, Nintendo really won't take this one down? They've taken everything else down, but
no, I expect it. The thing is, if you let one in, that opens the floodgates. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But I don't see why they couldn't say. I'm sure even some of these people would do it for free. I mean, they are doing it for free. If Nintendo said, "Hey, we'll make your remake a game like they do with their YouTube people. We'll make this a thing that we can sell, and you won't make any money off of, but you can say, hey, I had my game on a Nintendo system.
And it can be like a community right here. Like right, Steam has its little, community mod stuff. Like they can do the same thing. This is kind of open community things, but then Nintendo's notoriously paranoid about exploits. So they won't. You know what I mean? It's like
I
they
just read a story about Mario Maker where there's some guy who keeps the community alive by doing all these weird hacks that he finds, or like not hacks, but just glitches that he can take advantage of in Mario Maker. And Mario keeps banning his account. So he found a trick where if you buy 2 Wii U's and just keep transferring your account, you can never be permanently banned. So he just transfers between these 2 Wii U's, but he's always coming up with new stuff. And I guess they'll ban him, and then they'll do a patch for Mario Maker that cuts out the technique that he was using. So then he just finds another technique that he can hack.
Why aren't they just paying him?
Well, that's the thing. That's he issued a statement to them saying, I'm keeping this. You guys haven't done an update in like a year. I'm keeping this community alive. You act like this game doesn't even exist anymore, which I still think they may find a way to do it on Switch.
They absolutely will.
But I just thought it was
Every big
interesting that
seller on Wii U will
there's all
come to
these
Switch.
people willing to promote Nintendo for free, and they just won't allow it. But even if, like with the Mario remake, or maybe this Breath of the NES thing, they could sell this. I'm sure these people are just such hardcore fans that if Nintendo said, give us your game and sign all the rights over to us, and we'll release it as like a fan series or viewer's choice thing and let people vote on which one gets a hard copy or something. They
Or
could
which
spin
one
that
even
into a
gets
thing.
download. Yeah, like
Yeah, they could have them for $10 a piece, and then be like, you buy these games for $40, and then decide which one gets to be an official release, or something like that.
yeah,
and people
or
would do it
something.
for free. People
Yeah.
would do this,
And it's a statement of them being out of touch, like you're saying. It's like whenever Nintendo, reuses some meme in one of their tweets, that's like the meme is dead at that point. Like
Yeah.
that's like when your grandpa uses a slang term. It's like, okay.
they had Dat Boy in there.
Yeah.
Did Nintendo kill Dat Boy?
Yeah, from what, not that I'm up on all that kind of thing, but from what I understood, Dat Boy was kind of already dead at that point anyway.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend at work about Meme Run today, actually, because he had never heard of it, and I was the interesting. You know about Meme Run for Wii U? It's like
I've
a
heard of it.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's a crazy endless runner, but it's based on memes. So there's like troll faces and Lenny faces and
all sorts of internet,
the pyramid eye, all that stuff. And apparently the troll face, which is used a lot in those places on the internet that like the memes. Apparently somebody had copywritten that item, that image. He drew it and he copyrighted it. So when this dude threw it in the game, that guy sent him a cease and desist. So
gotcha.
He
I
had
think
to
I
take
did
it
end
off
up
of
hearing
eShop.
about that.
Yeah, he had to take it off the eShop, and he said, "Oh, it'll be back in a month or two."
That's right. I did hear about that.
It never came back out. But I thought it looked like the most horrible thing in the world, and he looked at it and was like, "This is genius. I would buy this." So maybe I'm too old.
I think
but
that's
yeah,
the older I get, the less I care.
I guess what I'm saying is I didn't know who Dat Boy was, and I still don't really care.
It's kind of like how our parents would see us watching sitcoms and go, "How can you watch that crap?"
Yeah. I don't know a meme exists until it hits Facebook, and by then it's probably super dead.
I, for some reason, get like know your meme updates in my Google feed. I haven't figured out quite why.
It's probably for the best.
But point being, Nintendo just being out of touch, like you guys are saying. It's like with they could be getting so much free marketing out of us super fans, but instead they just kind of pretend we don't exist. Like, right? That whole audience that bought the Wii U is like, it's almost like Nintendo doesn't want to admit those people are their fans. It's like they want to keep them in a closet.
Yeah. Well, you can either
I,
have people who are promoting your company or detracting from it, you know?
Yeah. And
well,
I've shifted to the latter. Go. Sorry, Q.
I was just going to say, I think they know we exist because remember Reggie with the whole Zelda special edition thing? I think that
Yeah,
was
Mother
it.
3, gag at
Where,
E3.
where they specifically said this is for the hardcore Nintendo fan or whatever, but they
A bunch of
still,
toys in a case.
yeah, and they still limit the quantity or whatever.
Yeah, but when they're talking about the hardcore Nintendo fan, I think they're talking about anybody that remembers Ocarina of Time fondly. That seems to be, most people. That seems to be the demographic of most people that I'm talking to about it. People in my age group, maybe also to some degree, but it seems to be mostly people who were of the right age when the Nintendo 64
Yeah.
came around.
The link to the past generation.
Yeah. To me, like I was big in on the NES, but I was big in television prior to that. So when the Super Nintendo and N64 came around, I was kind of on the PC boat at that time, and I was a teenager, and there was girls, and girls at that time were not into video games, for the most part. So it just I was kind of out of it for most of my teen years. Here and there, I picked them up late, but I'm not. And plus, Ocarina at the time, again, compared to like Doom and the kinds of things that were available on PC, Ocarina just didn't do it for me. Super Mario 64 did, on the other hand. But even then, I still saw the limitations of it versus what they were doing on PCs at the time. They just consoles at the time couldn't quite measure up, but there was such a disparity in cost and capability then that there's
It was an arms
far
race.
less
You
of
could buy
now.
a computer, and 6 months later, your computer was pretty much obsolete.
True.
Because everything was a real arms race, and then at a certain point, it kind of leveled out. So the systems were kind of stuck in whatever generation they had predetermined that they were going to stay at, and computers could just keep evolving and getting better and better. And like I said, now I think it's leveled out where there's not as big of a jump.
Yeah, and they're always trying to sell you the next big video card or whatever, but exactly outside of the particular enthusiasts, you can buy the $800 video card or $1,000 video card, but you can also play pretty much everything you want at pretty good quality with the $150 video card.
Yeah.
Right. So there's really, there's those super hardcore people. But then there's everybody else, and that's who Nintendo tends to target, right?
I got a $1 billion idea for Nintendo off of that. They could add a CD slot to the top of the Switch, and then they could make it play PC games. They'd be like, you can play PC games on the go.
Well, if you heard about the streaming, like there's some home streaming app that'll let you stream your Steam library or whatever, stream your PC to your Switch.
To your Switch.
Yeah, I saw that.
Anything.
I don't get that yet.
But here's the thing: as long as the controller integration is there, that's a viable option. That's a.
Does anyone here have Mario Kart 8 on Switch, by the way?
I do not.
Okay, because I'm wondering. I was thinking the other day. Do you think is the YouTube integration there? Because
It's an interesting
that
question.
was in the other one, and I know they said that this one will have the share button eventually do video. I wonder if that's an update coming to Mario Kart 8 at some point, or if that integration was there. Or if it only is the Mercedes in this one?
It is.
Is it?
I did see that. They did advertise that somewhere, or maybe some media outlet was
Some screenshot
advertising it. But I did see screenshots of the Mercedes.
I was wondering. It would be interesting if the YouTube thing was in there, because that really burned me when that game first came out. I was excited, and I tried the YouTube thing, and the next day I had not a cease and desist, but like a takedown request from YouTube of a violation that I had violated and taken Nintendo's property. And I'm not a YouTuber. I didn't know what that meant. I just see this thing like, whoa, Nintendo is going to do something to me because I posted from the video game with a feature that they advertised was in the game.
That is so That's a
Yeah.
great story. That's classic Nintendo, man.
I still
And
have
they
that
really
up on
touted
YouTube.
that.
I've got it up on YouTube, but I had to take the music out. So I think
You were
it's
saying, Q?
I was just saying the funniest thing about that was I remember Mario Kart 8 first came out. They were really touting that YouTube post to YouTube feature.
Oh yeah.
yeah. And it's like it just kind of that shows you how like out of touch they are, unless that was part of their plan. What if they were like, some of these people aren't going to do anything about their takedown notice because they're not actually logging into YouTube or from a computer or something, so we're just making pennies of advertising dollar off the few meager views each one gets. I can only imagine how many garbage Mario Kart 8 uploads are on YouTube that have like less than 8 views.
All of
I've
mine.
got a few. I've got a few.
yeah, there you go. If there's any ad revenue to be made, Nintendo's probably the one getting that revenue. So maybe that's a good moneymaker for them.
But then, you know what, though? Whenever somebody's searching for Mario Kart 8 videos right now, they've got mountains of crap videos that we uploaded, right? So Nintendo
Yeah.
has some volume of material out there. That's how they built it. But what about Twitch integration? We still haven't heard a peep about that. That seems like a no-brainer, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's one of those things that's obvious, but Nintendo doesn't always do the obvious.
And if they're claiming there are technical reasons they can't do like Bluetooth headsets and whatever, I'm kind of wondering if there would be too much overhead for direct video streaming.
Well,
for them to handle
Joy-Cons
it.
don't even work around Bluetooth devices.
They seem to have fixed that, at least with mine. The one I got back works like a champ, and I would argue seems to work even better than the gray one that I got that didn't have the problem in the first place.
I'm keeping my super rare, unmodified OG day one Joy-Con disconnecting model.
Does it?
What's strange is
No,
that
not really.
I had no issues with my left Joy-Con up until probably a couple days ago, and it just is now starting to act up out of the blue.
Did you get a new fish tank?
I did not.
I don't know what it could be then.
Yeah, no, I remember having that conversation with him on the phone too. I'm like, look, I don't own an aquarium. Okay. My couch is not extraordinarily far from my TV. No, I have direct line of sight to the box. Like I just rattled it all off because I
do live on a
know what all
boat.
your
Does that
questions
count? Yeah. Yeah, I think that was crazy, but I have not had an issue unless I try to do it. Like if I put a Joy-Con behind my back, and put it in the calibration mode and just move the stick around, like it's a little sluggish. But I've never noticed it when I was actually playing a game properly with my hands in front of my body.
In mine, it would literally, if I put it behind my back, it would outright lose connection. It would just become.
I don't think I've ever gotten the disconnect
responsive
message.
Well, it didn't
gets
disconnect.
sluggish.
It didn't disconnect. It just no response. It would start by getting sluggish, but if I just like held it, directly behind my back and I was standing, behind my couch, it would just completely lose connect. Or if I held it immediately behind the couch, that was where we first noticed it, is because we were standing behind the couch doing the
Hokey
lock,
pokey.
the lock, the 1-2 switch, the lock breaker one, the you have to
where you
figure out the combination or whatever.
Yeah, the little links click into place.
And I was just holding it kind of low when I was doing it, and it wasn't responding. And I realized, oh, wait a minute, I lifted it 6 inches, so I wasn't holding it behind the couch, and it was fine. So I was like, ah.
I wondered about that because I know Zelda, at times it's getting better supposedly with these updates, but there are times when the frame rate kind of chugs.
Yeah.
And like I was wondering how much
for
of
me.
It's always the Moblins.
Moblins, I had one up on a mountain. The only time I've ever really noticed a big one was I was up on a mountain and there was a Moblin, and it chugged. And then I do notice it in the forest of whatever, the Lost Woods, with all that fog on the screen. But I wondered how much of the Joy-Con stuff could have been just the game lagging and people were thinking it was the Joy-Con. Once you plant that idea in somebody's head, and some people were obviously legitimately having issues.
Maybe.
That could be the issue I'm having. I don't know, because my Joy-Con issue that I've had 2 or 3 times now over the past few days, I've just been sitting on the couch playing Zelda, and the game it's like the Joy-Con doesn't respond, and Link just kind of moves on his own and walks into lava on the volcano or whatever. It's like, well, I wasn't moving the Joy-Con that way.
Yeah,
He just
that's the
kind of
issue.
did his own.
That's definitely what I was seeing. Yeah.
I'm assuming you don't have a Pro controller.
No, I just have my Joy-Cons attached into the grip or whatever it's called.
Get a Pro controller and dock it. It's a beautiful thing.
It really is. I was kind of like, I'm happy with the Joy-Cons, don't get me wrong, but just very occasionally there are things that I need to be a little more precise, and the Joy-Cons just don't quite do it. The snow bowling is the perfect example. I have a real hard time getting perfectly lined up straight to throw the snowball where I want to throw it with the Joy-Cons, but for some reason with the Pro controller, just zero issue. I'm always.
But
Now,
how
do
many
you guys-
times have you accidentally taken a picture with the Joy-Con versus the Pro controller?
I think it's about. I think I do it more often on the Pro controller. Yeah,
I do
just
too.
where
It's
the button location. Yeah, because you think you're
Yeah.
hitting select or start.
right. Yep.
Now, do
Sorry,
you
you were saying?
guys? I was saying on the Joy-Cons, the left Joy-Con. Not no matter how many times I try to avoid doing this, it feels like the left uh, stick is very touchy. I don't know if the right stick is as much, but I'm constantly in Zelda, like fighting an enemy, and somehow I realize I'm in crouched stealth mode, and then I get screwed up or whatever.
Yeah, you know
Yeah.
what?
That
I
happened.
do accidentally crouch myself more often with the Joy-Cons. Yeah, that's definitely true. Because the sticks are smaller and a little less like, yeah, I think you got to give them a little more force on the Pros all around. They're just stiffer sticks.
Yeah, I like them, but I think if you're somebody who's going to use your Joy-Cons primarily, you probably should, send that in and see what they can do to fix it, because that's legitimate. Like mine, like I said, if I put it behind my back, it'll get sluggish, but it's not a certain
I got
position or
mine
something
back
like
in
that.
36 hours.
Yeah, it helps that
Like,
you're on the
well,
West Coast.
here's the thing though, is it didn't go direct to Nintendo. It went to some local service center for my area. So I would
Okay.
assume it would be the same case for you guys. It would go to some central, probably, yeah, somewhere around whatever the major city is that you live. That there's probably a service center in that city. So in my case, I sent it out, I think, on a Tuesday afternoon, and I got it back first thing Thursday morning. Like UPS is never at my house that early, or
Yeah.
FedEx or whoever it was. So it was. I mean, I didn't have to live without it very long at all. They were very, very quick about it. So
But if
I'd
that's all you'd
recommend
have,
doing
it's
it.
very disappointing, though. Yeah.
It was yeah, and it was a 5-minute phone call. It was about as low hassle as it could have possibly been. So as far as the service goes, so I highly recommend, even if you just think maybe you have the problem, I highly recommend doing it.
Yeah, I've got a little slight screen defect on mine, and I'm scared to send it in that they're just gonna
Because you've
have
heard
to
the
replace it
stories.
and wipe out.
Yeah.
They're gonna wipe out the data. Yeah, that's my biggest thing with that is it's just a small thing in the side of a screen that I don't play on the screen that much anyway, so I don't really notice it. But if it wiped out my whatever I've got 130, 150 hours into Zelda, I would be a little bit disappointed, even if I would love to play it again, like I know you're doing right now, Z. I'd still want my original stuff with my original achievements that I had.
Yeah, agreed. I now have 2, reasonably well filled out playthroughs on, saved on this thing. And I think about it, I'd be pretty upset if they were gone.
Well, there's a lot of Nintendo issues, and we're probably running out of time tonight to talk about all of them. But luckily, there's enough to keep us going, I think, for quite some time.
Yeah, I would agree to that.
Anybody else got anything tonight?
I'm going to take that silence as a no. So,
We'll see
Sound
everybody
good.
next time, I guess.
yeah, I guess we should wrap up. If
Yep.
you're listening to this, thanks for listening. And guys, thanks for joining us tonight. It's fun as always. We'll see you next time.
Take it easy.
On the Untitled Nintendo podcast.
Exactly.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.